knowing what you know now, the trial and error, would you say that's actually not the best way to get started?
And that personal development got me out of that dark space, allowed me to get back to controlling things I had control over.
Especially with smartphones and things and the little computer in your pocket every day, you can make dough. If you're gritty enough.
And especially at that time, I needed somebody like that. And I didn't have anybody out here that really kind of connect with me.
People back from jumping into the entrepreneurial game, and people like that think that they hear all of our stories and they've seen success, but they're just like, they can't quite take the leap.
Don't worry about what your friends are doing, what everybody's around you doing. What can you have control over, and what can you do every day to move to progress?
So you were able to build this wholesale business, and it's magical what happens when you are successful at something.
Welcome back to the Wealth Juice podcast. As always, it's your boys Ryan and Corey here with another episode. We are out in sunny Scottsdale, Arizona for Immersion Season 3. Shout out Growth House and Jesse Ray. We are so excited to have a big player in the wholesaling space out here in AZ, Elijah Rubin. Welcome to the show, man. We are so excited to interview you today.
Yes, thank you guys for the opportunity, tapping in with the family. Appreciate it.
Yes, sir. We're excited, man. So take us through your journey, maybe a little pre-real estate, and then how you got into wholesaling, and we'll eventually get caught up to all the success you've seen today.
Cool. 20,000 square foot view on it. I started, my mom is Trinidadian. My dad's Jewish. I'm the only Trinidadian Jew in all real estate. All right, so that gives me some separation. But I did every type of sales position at one point in time in Arizona. Every call center, I probably worked at least a lot of them. So I was good at closing people, good at connecting with people, got in club promotions, and that's all how to add value and pair opportunities and relationships together for success. And then I discovered real estate. And first year, first 9 months took me to get my first check. And remember, back then there was no YouTube, there was no Facebook. I had to get newspapers and circle for sale by owners to get my first deal. After I got my first $10,000 check, I knew it was on. I knew I would never have to go back and work a regular 9 to 5 again. If I could turn words into wires, conversations into cashier's checks, I could do it over and over again.
So I'm very curious. You mentioned back then. Tell us when it was, and then also what was your strategy? You said 9 months to get your first check. You were doing wholesaling, but were you just cold calling the listings that you saw? Were you sending mailers? How did you even know what to do back then?
Good question. Yeah, so I should probably start off with that, right? I'm in my 20th year, so I'm a senior in the wholesale space, right? So I'm in my 20th year, so I started back in 2004. So this is the 4 years before the collapse. And so at that time, I was working for an ex-football player. I would go to the auction, and during my lunch break, I'll go and just bid for him. And so I started to network with other guys who were at the auctions, and they would tell me, hey, you could get deals in newspapers for sale by owners. So I didn't know how to find any other deals. That was the only source I knew how to find deals. So every Sunday, my boys would be watching football, and during halftime and the commercials, I'll go out there and make calls. And eventually, it took me not the most effective, efficient route, but I got a deal eventually 9 months later, and once I got that first one, it's real.
For people that are starting out today, would you say, even in 2024, that wholesaling is the lowest barrier to entry and easiest way to get into real estate? Or would you, knowing what you know now, the trial and error, would you say that's actually not the best way to get started? I'm just curious.
It kind of depends. I think more of your personality types and your end goal. If you are like a lot of people in this generation, I need it now, it might be a little hard because you could want it now, you're going to get it now. But if you're open to delayed gratification, you understand I had to plant the seed before I'm going to get the harvest. I think hands down, you could turn, like I said, you're investing your time and words. And time and words and contracts could turn to 10, 15, 20,000. I think it's the best way to get into the real estate so you could generate real checks that you could buy you 3-4 months so you're not working a job and then try and figure it out.
I'm very curious about the hardest time you've been through in the 20 years you've been doing this. And I'm sure you just rattled off a bunch in your head. But we oftentimes talk to investors who have been investing for the last 6, 7, 8 years. Ryan and I are in our early 30s, approaching mid. We did not experience investors investing in 2008. And that's fortunate, right? Because I know it hurt a lot of people. I'm curious about your journey up, and we'll get to where you are now. But what is the hardest moment or the hardest time that you've had to go through throughout that 20-year span?
There's definitely a plethora of them. All right, a lot of counseling right now, a lot of soul searching. No, honestly, I looked at it. I would probably say right after the collapse, 2009, 2008. Everybody what's going to happen? But now 2009, now the carnage is left over. The big dogs are going back to work. People committing suicide. People are really going through it out here and losing it, and no one knows when the bleeding was going to stop. And so I'm depressed. I mean, because remember, that's '07, I'm balling out. I'm going to Amsterdam. I'm spending all the money, right? Tell my sisters, oh, y'all shouldn't go to college. You guys could come and work for me. Now I'm like, hey, can I borrow a loan? Right? So I'm eating a lot of humble pie. And I'm thinking about to have to go back to work. I just remember feeling the desperation. I remember feeling just the embarrassment, the shame of I told all these people I want to be this big time person, and I'm blowing all my money and being half Jewish. I should have saved some of it, right? And I blew all of it. My grandfather's angry at me. I'm like, what am I doing? Oh, my yarmulke tilted. So at the end of the day, I started figuring out like, hey, I really started getting more into personal development. And that personal development got me out of that dark space and allowed me to get back to controlling things I had control over.
Was that the reason that you didn't quit? Because you could have.
Oh, I was Rocky on the ropes. I was quitting. I was calling for interviews. But luckily I got enough calls that came and that showed me that there's enough glimmer of hope. And then, like I said, I discovered E.T., Dr. Eric Thomas, E.T. the hip hop preacher.
Oh yeah, I love him.
Yeah,
Love E.T.,
so,
oh my God.
so it was the first person I saw with a hat on, Jordans, being able to talk corporate, had sincere substance without jeopardizing the swag.
Better not be any brick walls around when he's talking, man. I'm running through those.
Oh,
I was just taking notes though, man. He's got the energy. I love this. I'm feeling it.
Yeah, no, he's definitely top motivational speaker for me, and especially at that time, I needed somebody like that, and I didn't have anybody out here that really kind of connect with me. So once I saw I could wake up earlier, I can work one more extra hour call. So I started feeling I was in more control versus feeling like I'm a kite in the wind.
Totally, yeah. You got some?
Yeah, when you want success as much as you want to breathe, then you'll be successful.
Hey.
Like, damn, man, I love ET, dude. I really like. Sometimes I'll be even just driving to Newark, or we have a big podcast coming up, and I listen to like a 15-minute clip just to get juiced up, like ready to go. It's a mindset thing.
For sure.
I have a question for you and this is me. We have a couple fun questions I want to throw in here because you've seen so much success, man, and you've traveled the world, you've seen everything. But we have a lot of young and aspiring investors that are listening to the show, and they're like seeing what we're all doing, like, damn, man, like one day, right? And a lot of them, they don't know where to start. And so my question for you is like, what do you think is one of the biggest things that holds people back from jumping into the entrepreneurial game? And people like that think that they hear all of our stories and they've seen success, but they're just like, they can't quite take the leap.
No, that's a good question. And I know that's just happened more and more. You know, I think it's a mixture of comparison. So they see, I compare, well, look, he's taller than me, or he has a better smile than me, or look where he came from, he's not from my place. So those limiting beliefs creeps in on top of you seeing the constant reinforcement of all these comparisons to look at what I'm not. And I think people focus more on their gaps than their gains. And so you focus on, hey, I don't have this, I don't have that, this is what's gonna stop me, versus, hey, I'm in America. People are around this country don't have the same freedoms and opportunities we have. You have the chance with the internet, the technology we had. Even when I started, I couldn't skip trades 1,000 records and make phone calls that same hour. I had to go and like drive for dollars, right? So I think it's limiting beliefs and comparisons is what's really stopping a lot of people.
You had a couple of really good points in there. One of the things like America, I feel like is like now the land of the hustle, right? Like you can figure it out, especially with smartphones and things and the little computer in your pocket every day. You can make dough. If you're gritty enough, you can find dollars. And I think a lot of people struggle with, they feel like they're breathing out of a fire hose with all the information out there because they'll hear your story. They're like, dude, I got to be a wholesaler. Or they'll hear someone's on DSCR loans or Fernando's story, and they're like, damn, like I got to go into the loan space. Here, Corinne Ryan's, I got to start a podcast. Like they don't know what to do. And like, oh shit, I want to do everything. And it's like, it's incremental steps. Like we were told in the beginning when we started this game, they're like, dude, if you want to be successful at this, just earmark 10 years out of your life. It's going to take you 10 years to get to the pinnacle, right? And some people are like, nah, I'm good. Like I'll just keep making 100K at my job and like be good. And like obviously I say that, but a lot of people listening to our show are those 6-figure earners, and they're just like, dude, I don't know what to do with my money. I want to get in the game. I'm too scared. I'm starting a family. I can't get out. So it's just interesting. If you could maybe look back at young 18-year-old Elijah, knowing what you know now about the world, like what piece of advice would you give him to either get started or just like give the fire to keep going?
Oh man, I would easily go back and tell young Elijah, sit down, son. No, I'll just don't be a jack of all trades, be a master of one, and just being able to understand that you could do anything, you just can't do everything. And what you're able to, and that's one thing I've learned from ET. He did those Thank God It's Monday videos for like 8 years. He's like, nobody's watching at first, but I was consistent. I showed up. It was me versus me. It's not me for what everybody else is seeing. And I think if you could get to that position, I would tell myself, hey, don't worry about what your friends are doing, what everybody's around you doing. What can you have control over, and what can you do every day to move to progress? And I would have did a vision board earlier.
Very cool. I think it takes you mentioned a lot, and it kind of like resonates with me, but like you mentioned ET is he's your motivational guy. Like what we found is like finding that one person. It's usually like who, not how. Like I know there's so many ways how to get there, right? But finding that one person that can help bridge the gap for you, like shorten the gain. You mentioned Gap in the Gain, great book. But I think what we found is relationship capital is just as valuable as the dollar, if not way more. And so it can take one relationship being in one room to build a partnership and take your life to the next level. And so I think that's why we pride ourselves here being an immersion. And I'm just curious, like why you chose to be here today of all places. Like why Jesse, why immersion, why Growth House? Like how come you're in the room with us?
Yeah, I really believe in your vibe attracts your tribe. All right. And Jesse and I have a very similar vibe, similar mindset, good people we connect with. And I really believe that God puts people in your life for a specific reason in different seasons. And so if you're willing to be obedient and put yourself in those rooms, watch the blessing can happen if you're willing just to be obedient. So when the opportunities happen, it happened all organically. It wasn't like I was trying to force it. It's more flow over force. And when that happens, I let go and let God lead.
Totally, man. So you were able to build this wholesale business, and it's magical what happens when you are successful at something. You can build a brand around that thing, and then that thing leads to the next thing. And as long as it aligns with you and your goals and like what you want to pursue in the future, it can explode. And this has led to another version of you, another business that you're focusing on. So just talk to us about your most recent focus and where your business is headed. And obviously you're doing the wholesaling, but like, what's new for you? What's going on with Elijah in 2024?
Sure. So in 2024, we put our fire damage coaching program on pause. We had a little whole niche nationwide, teach people how to buy fire damage properties. Put that on hold for a moment. And I was like, me and Jennifer were like one of the only people in the country that teaches this. And so because we created Closer Olympics, a virtual sales competition, so that we could see who the best closer in the country is. We're in our 4th year doing it. Because the last year's Closer Olympics, we got a great opportunity with Lead Zello. Shout out to Lead Zello. And they were their lead provider, national lead PPL provider. They figured out how to conquer the YouTube game to get motivated sellers, which is different than Google ads and some different platforms. So one of the partners was exiting. They're like, Elijah, we want to build a $100 million portfolio. We've seen how you handled all these other gurus. We see how you handled the event. There's adversity. You're in character and integrity. We want to do this with you. So they said, hey, you put together, you assemble the real estate team. We'll provide you with leads in whatever markets you want. We'll take care of the marketing costs. We get a percentage of the wholesale fees and the holdings. And in 5 years, we should all split $100 million.
That's pretty good.
It's a small number.
So
That's the goal. That's the goal.
So how did that opportunity come to be? And the reason why I asked the question is people that are listening are thinking, I don't know what they're thinking, but like what I would be thinking is like, oh man, like, those opportunities only come to people that are lucky, or like that happened because of XYZ or what, and I'm curious talk to us about how the opportunity came to be for you, because that frames it for people like, oh, if I put myself in this position, if I surround myself with the right people, I too can be in a position to elevate and then exponentially grow.
That's good. I think I believe we all have very similar energy of it, having an attitude of servitude. If you're willing to serve your way to the top. I was serving. I mean, I'm not getting paid on this last one. We did not make as much money we made on the last 2, but this created the biggest opportunity for me, right? And so being willing to have that energy of, hey, let me serve, let me add value, do the extras, don't run to the finish line, run through the finish line in everything they see you do. Most people will only do the bare minimum what they're being asked for. I'm taking initiative. I'm adding value. Him and his one of the partners, him and his wife, me and Jenny have this little same page couple session technique we do because we work together, and how to make sure you're not always doing work all the time, always doing work, because that erodes your relationship. So Jennifer created a process. We get to tap in God, tap in with each other, what's important today, and then business. Gives a process. I hear the partner. I mean, this is just when we're just talking about them being a sponsor for us. He tells me that his wife and him, they work together, have some challenges. I just like, hey, let me send this to you. I explain it to him. I send it to him. Add value first. And he's like, wow, I didn't ask you for any of this. I've been doing business with people for years. No one tried to pour into my life up front like this. I feel like that was the beginning part.
I love that you told us very specifically. I was hoping that you weren't going to give a generic answer, because when people are at the words provide value, they get thrown around, and then like I know people on the other end of hearing that are like, what does that mean? Like, what do I do? And
some Postmates.
Yeah, and I give an example of like, if you're a graphic designer, or a website designer, you should be going to every hedge fund or real estate investor that you know and saying like, hey, I can help you do this and I'll do it for free. And then that value that you bring to that person then says, why would this person, nobody's willing to do it for free. Why would they do it? That's what I would think. And then from there, that's how organic relationships are built based on servitude. And I think so many people will not put their pride aside and do something for free or dig in and lean in that way. And that takes you from stage 0 to stage 7. You get to skip those steps as opposed to being like, no, my value, I'm 23, but my value's $50 an hour. And it's like, well, you haven't proven that to anybody yet.
Has anybody paid that to you?
Yeah, right. So go ahead. I know you.
No, it's a quick parlay off this. It's like, I think you're paid in direct proportion to the problems you solve and the amount of people that you impact. And like, clearly you're doing that on a large scale right now. And it's so interesting. We always talk about providing value, and like, it sounds so like, basically everybody's like, I get it.
The same thing as networking, like network.
Yep.
Like, what do you do? You know?
And it's hard to put something on it. And you mentioned the graphic design thing. I think a lot of people, or I know a lot of people today, they're trying to build their personal brand and get out there. Like marketing and sales, that's number one to get in the door. Then you build the operations on your way up, right? We've learned that time and time again, at least over this weekend too. But I want to say, like, there's people that have skill sets. We're all looking for the VA. We're all looking for someone to cut up clips, looking for someone to help us with branding. And then we go take it to the next level because our personalities, the energy, the juice that we bring. But to have someone behind the scenes orchestrating that because you don't have the time to do that, that's the perfect way. Just a nugget for people listening. Like, if you're not sure how to get there, reach out to people, use your skill set, as Corey mentioned, but then also study your people. And I say this, we had a gentleman on the show, maybe like, it was probably a year ago now. And he was looking for connections, and he did some research on a gentleman who was really into classical jazz, and huge real estate investor. This guy was coming up building his roofing company. And he's like, I really need to meet that one guy because then I'll be in touch with all of the real estate agents in this market, and I'll be able to get in touch with their clients, right? And so he had a plan in his head. He found out this guy liked classical jazz, and they really had like a famous musician that they both loved. And the one guy knew the other person, the other guy had no idea. He wrote him a note, found out the address to one of this guy's properties that he owned, either it's personal or, and he just mailed it and said like, hey, I'd love to get in touch. Want just to send this to you. I'm a big fan of him as well. The guy hit him up like a week later. This is a multimillionaire, close to a billionaire, reached out to this guy, starting his roofing company. They joined forces, became a mentor, and the guy in the next year became a millionaire. And it's just like unbelievable. Like, but one little nugget, tiny thing, like if you hear something, I don't know, we talked about a bunch of different things, but if we dropped ET, right? For example, someone sends you something, a signed whatever by ET, or like a meet and greet with ET. I don't know what it could be, but like something little like that, just to show that they listen, they knew your style and your flow. You'd be like, damn, like I'm going to give you attention. Right. Correct. And so I just want to say that, like, listen, like people listen and they don't act, but like creatively listen, act. We're telling you what we need. Or like, if you kind of got to read between the lines sometimes. Mm-hmm. And I think it can take you to the next level. Like I said, bringing it back to the relationships, it takes one person to take you to the next level of your life. You have to be listening and conscious of, how to get there.
Yeah, no, I think that's really good. And just to double down on that, and something that's very tangible for everybody's watching. I think if you kind of look for solving problems, what you have, but don't look for level 10 problems. You're not at level 10. Look for the level 1. If that's where you're at, there's beauty in the struggle. Respect your level. Shout out to J. Cole. All right. And so respect that level where you're at, where you're able to say, hey, you know what? Do you need coffee? Let me go and get you coffee. Did somebody need to wash your car? Be willing to do the lowest level thing possible and let them know I'm willing to serve you. If I'm willing to do this, you ask me with a bigger task, I'm on it. And so I think if you're just willing to look for problems, listen, actively listen, and find out, and like do your research, find out. I remember one relationship, I found out he had kids, and his kids were playing tennis. So I got Serena Williams and Richard Williams a little autograph poster one of my friends happened to have. I bought it from him, sent it to them, and now we have a relationship. It's little simple like things like that. You invest in the people, be aware of it, and that one relationship could change everything.
Love it, man. As we wind down here, I want to know your thoughts on what is one entrepreneurial trait or part of character that you think separates successful entrepreneurs from people that give up and they don't make it?
I know there's several of them, but I will say, just because I personally subscribe to it, I think having polite persistence. I think that relentlessness, being able to I take at least 7, 8 no's, and if it's something I really believe in, you better have 10 no's in you. Or I'll ask it a different way, but having that ability to believe in yourself, believe in what you want, and be willing to take multiple no's. Not when you're not being aggressive, be polite, but be persistent. Believe in it and let them. They better believe in it no more than you believe in yes.
I love that answer because, and I can relate it to our coaching program that we're building. And we've found that Ryan and I truly have this belief that anybody that's looking to buy their first or next rental property, we can help you get there. That is a firm belief. I know we've seen it done. 3 people in our program have already done it within 8 weeks. So I'm watching people do it. And then when I still have the rejection of only 30% of the people that we talk to end up coming on board, and I'm like, these people are missing out. They're not getting it. That's just sales, right? That's just like getting people to understand your vision, and not everyone's going to go with it. But if you continue to nurture and you continue to show them value and continue to do the outreach, you're going to win more than you lose. And that's something that personally, like, I feel like I've had to learn even more so than like you're used to it. But like, I was like, why are more people not latching onto this? Like, it's proven it can work. And just being okay with the no's, being resilient through the no's is like, that's going to get you to more yeses.
We've worked in marketing, sales, and customer service over 10 plus years, like on our W-2s, our previous life before real estate. And I think it's just helped sharpen our skill sets, but then also we've been able to take numerous punches in the face. It's a 12-round fight every single day, not only with other people, but I think one of the biggest things is we found is like the biggest battle lies between your ears, and it's you versus you. It's like the dude you're fighting every day is the guy in the mirror. Like, how far are you willing to go? I think it was something, it's funny to bring him into this, but like John Cena, I saw something recently about, and he's like, listen, I know I've been blessed with the blessing after blessing after blessing, and I've capitalized on all of them. But the number one thing for me is gratitude. And he goes, at the end of every day, I want to be able to look myself back in the mirror and to say, can I close the door of this day to open up the door of the next day? Did I earn the sunrise the next morning? Because that's what he said. And I'm like, damn, man, like if a guy like that at the top of his game is still doing this every day, there's something to it. And it's self-talk, self-belief, affirmation. We talked about this. I'll bring it back to ET again, but it's that like internal battle. I just want people to realize, like, we had Fernando on the show, probably last episode, but a couple hours ago for us. And really he talked about like perseverance and realizing like it's you versus you. You don't, I know the sales game is, I kind of bring this back to Corey when he's talking about, we've been in sales for a long time and we're getting no's a lot, and like 30% is a good clip. Like it is, it's not a bad clip, but we have to continue like look ourselves in the mirror at the end of the night, like, you're good. We got it tomorrow. We got it the next day and the next thing. It's just like the overall premise of this conversation is we talked marketing and sales, but I think relationships, trusting yourself and realizing like no one's going to come save you. Like after you mentioned 10 no's, and I'm just thinking about this, like you can wallow in your sorrows and you could get depressed. You could kind of just close the light, shut down the lights, close the doors, but no one's going to come rescue you. And I think the earlier you realize that in your life, the further along you'll get. And it's taken a lot. Like we've all learned this at one point in our journey, and I'm kind of blabbing here and taking too long to get to my point. But all I'm saying is you need to focus on you. And I think there's something that some people don't do throughout their lives and they put shame on. It's like, I think it's okay to like pay for a accountability partner, a mentor, but then also to get help in your personal life. I know we mentioned this, like therapy. That's a real thing. I just want to bring that up, like mental health. And I don't know how I got down this path, but I'm like mental health in general, like not a lot of guys want to talk about this. And I think not a lot of people do, but I've talked to someone, like a lot of people in my close circle have been like, dude, this is the best thing that I've ever done. You can offload all this stuff we're talking about and then I'm good. And then you just move on to the next day. So don't be afraid to voice your fears and what you're going through, because there's someone that can help you. And I just wanted to make sure I mentioned that, because there's a lot of struggle in the entrepreneurial game. And I think people that hear our stories and they think they're sexy and like you've reached level of success, it's not come without dark days. Correct. And so I just want to make sure to highlight that, like it's all glitz and glam on the podcast, but behind closed doors, you need to fight the good fight between your ears every day and surround yourself with people that uplift you and motivate you to the next level.
I think that's why our stories of people that we share, like with you, Elijah, we don't just dive into the success part of it, because we know that the 20 years, although you're on a podcast and you're talking about your success, it stems from like deep work, like just things that are behind the scenes. And that's what we like to highlight on the show. So last question for me, I'm curious about your 18-year-old self. If you could go back and talk to your 18-year-old self, pending he would listen, what information would you tell him knowing what you know about the world?
Well, I know about the world, I'll say find Jennifer Coronado faster. Not joking. Hey, shout out the wifey. No, honestly, I would tell myself, I will go back and tell myself first, for sure, manage my time. No one really goes over our time management process. It's not really a process. I created this A through E method, just to really how to prioritize your time and make sure all the buckets are accounted for. You spend so much time chasing girls, talking, partying, doing life, finding who you are, trying to impress friends, and you don't really part time for your spirituality, for your health, for your mindset. I really wish at an 18-year-old, before I learned real estate and all the success habits, because he who does not master his time will soon part with it.
I love that. I'm trying to read your shirt. We got God, family, real estate.
Yes, sir.
That's your mantra?
Yes, sir.
I love it. So last question for me to wrap the show. This is a phenomenal episode, by the way. Thanks for your time, and we'll get to the thank yous. But my last question for you kind of parlays on the last question, and it's what gets you out of bed every morning to do what you do. We found that most entrepreneurs are self-starters. They have this fire in them and like a chip on their shoulder. Maybe it's a chip, maybe it's not. But like, what gets you out of bed every morning to do what you do? What's your overarching why?
My mom, like I said, my mom and dad, they named me Elijah. So no tattoos, no ear piercing, nothing. They're like, you're going to do something powerful in this planet. So they kind of spoke that into me as a little kid. So I always knew God had a bigger calling in my life, what that was, how that's going to be. I left that up to him. I thought there was going to be a lot of different options. But what I really believe, my main why is I know one day I'm going to wake up. One relationship is going to happen. I don't know if it's going to be where I'm going to, get 4 castles and I'm going to 1031 them into I want to buy my own island is one of my own personal goals. I want to buy my own personal island, and then I want to bring entrepreneurs. I want to be able to bring and change the way the younger generation views life, views success, and views tenacity. What does tenacity looks like, where you don't have to come up on somebody, you don't have to take advantage of somebody, but you still could benefit yourself. I really want to change, be the face for what that could look like in the future.
Wow. I love it, man. Well, thank you again. Just blessed to be here on this couch with you, sharing your story, getting to know you a bit. Now we're in the same circle, which is awesome. I feel honored and privileged. So from both Corey and I, thanks so much, man.
Appreciate you both. Appreciate y'all.